The snow had been falling since 4 in the afternoon. By 7:30, it had buried the sidewalks of Michigan Avenue under 6 inches of silence, turning the city's sharpest edges soft. Cabs moved slower. Pedestrians hunched lower. The holiday lights, strung between lampposts, swayed in the wind like something trying to hold on. Inside Maison Noire, none of this existed. The restaurant occupied the ground floor of a 1920s limestone building that had survived 3 owners, 1 fire, and a near demolition in the 90s, before being rescued and remade into what it was now. 22 tables, French-trained kitchen staff, a wine cellar that required a separate key, and the kind of silence that cost money to maintain. No music loud enough to interrupt thought. No surfaces that clattered. Even the lighting, warm, low, directed, seemed engineered to make people feel slightly more important than they actually were. Isabella Hart had a standing reservation here, not because she liked the food, though the duck confit was exceptional. Not because she knew the sommelier by name, though she did. She came here because Maison Noire was one of the few places in Chicago where no one would approach her with a business card. The staff had been briefed on this. Her assistant had briefed them. Her security detail, on the rare evenings they accompanied her, had briefed them again. The understanding was simple. Miss Hart dines alone. She is not interrupted. She will signal when she requires something. Tonight, however, her security detail was not with her. Tonight, by deliberate choice, it was just her. She sat at her usual corner table, the one with sight lines to both the entrance and the kitchen corridor, and ordered the tasting menu and a bottle of the 2018 Burgundy without consulting the list. She had memorized the list 2 years ago and had stopped consulting it shortly after, which said something about her, though she could not have said exactly what. That she was efficient. That she planned ahead. That she found comfort in knowing exactly what would arrive before it arrived. The sommelier, a composed, silver-haired man named Vincent, who had been at Maison Noire for 11 years and had seen every variety of important person pass through the door, brought the wine with the particular combination of ceremony and restraint that she had always appreciated. He showed her the label, poured a measure, waited. She swirled it once, tasted it, nodded. No performance in either direction. This was one of the reasons she kept coming back. The staff here understood that service was not the same as attention, that to serve someone well was sometimes to leave them alone. The dining room was perhaps 2/3 full. A couple near the window, their conversation soft and continuous, the kind that comes from 10 years of practice. A table of 4 in the center business dinner, she could tell by their posture. 2 of them leaning in, 2 of them leaning back. A man eating alone at the bar, not quite at a table, turned slightly away from the room. She noticed all of this in the first 30 seconds and then dismissed it. She was 36 years old. She had been CEO of Heartwarming, a logistics and supply chain technology firm with annual revenue just under $4 billion since she was 31, when her predecessor's sudden resignation had left a board scrambling, and Isabella Hart had walked into that room with a proposal already prepared. She had known, somehow, that the moment was coming. She had always known. This was the thing people got wrong about her in profiles and panel discussions. They framed it as ambition, as if ambition were the whole story. But it was not ambition that had carried her here. It was attention. It was the habit of watching rooms and reading them, of noting which conversations would matter and which would not, of understanding that most crises are visible in advance if you bother to look. She was looking, now, at the snow beyond the window. It had begun to come down harder. The couple near the glass had noticed she saw the woman glance outside. A small smile, but no one inside seemed troubled by it. The first course arrived. She ate slowly, which was unusual for her. Most of her meals were consumed in transit. Between meetings, behind a car window, standing over a counter in the Hart Meridian executive kitchen with her phone in her free hand. This was different. This was, she supposed, the point. Her assistant, Lydia, had stopped scheduling these dinners for the past 3 months. Somehow they had slipped. Isabella had not complained, had not asked why, and the result had been a kind of low-grade depletion she had only recognized recently. Not exhaustion, exactly, but the particular flatness that comes from too many days without a moment that belongs entirely to yourself. So she had called Maison Noire directly. This afternoon, between a 2-hour legal review and a call with their Singapore office, she had picked up the phone and made the reservation herself, and when Lydia had pinged her at 6:15 to ask if she needed a car, she had replied, "No, I'll walk." It was only 4 blocks. She had walked them in the snow, alone, wearing the wool coat she almost never wore because it had no functional pockets, and she had felt for approximately 2.5 blocks something that might have been contentment. The second course arrived. A small tower of seared scallops, each one placed with the precision of someone who took the work seriously. She poured herself half a glass of wine. The burgundy was excellent, earthier than she remembered from last year. Something mineral and complex underneath. She turned it in the glass and watched the way the candlelight moved through it. For a moment, she did not think about the Singapore call. She did not think about the acquisition her legal team was reviewing. She did not think about the quarterly numbers, which were strong but not as strong as she wanted, or the board dinner next week, or the 3 unanswered messages sitting in her encrypted inbox. She just sat, in the snow quiet of Maison Noire, and drank her wine. Then she reached for the glass again, and the wine went the wrong way. He had been at table 7 for 40 minutes before anything happened. Michael Reed had chosen table 7 specifically because it was not near the window and not near the bar and not near the entrance, which meant it was the table least likely to be noticed by anyone looking for atmosphere or scene. He was not interested in atmosphere. He was interested in 30 minutes of not thinking about anything he needed to think about. The week had been long in the way that weeks are long when you are managing 2 different employers. A 6-year-old with reactive airways disease and a radiator that had started making a sound he could not identify and was afraid to look up online. He was a structural analyst at a civil engineering firm, Callaway and Brandt, working toward his P.E.